In this video, we are going to learn how to solve linear equations and inequalities. Solving equations, and you'll know it's an equation because it'll have an equal sign in it, or an inequality symbol. So an inequality symbol looks like this. Okay, means that you are finding the value or values that make a true statement. So if we take a look at example 1, it says solve the equation or inequality. So because it has the equal sign right here, it's an equation. Leave your answer as an integer. So an integer means like -1, -2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So no decimals, no fractions. Or a simplified fraction. So that means if you get 5/10, you're going to write it as 1/2. It means if you get 3/2, you can leave it as 3/2. You don't have to write it as 1 and 1/2. Okay, so it's important to know what the directions mean so we know how to leave our final answers. When you're doing your online homework, you might have the right answer, but if you leave it as a decimal, it would mark it wrong because the directions say an integer or a fraction. It doesn't say decimals are allowed. Okay. So when we are solving an equation, the first step is to simplify if you can. So in lesson 1, so this is lesson 2, so in lesson 1 you learned how to distribute and how to combine like terms. So using lesson 1, we're going to go ahead and do that on the left side of this equal sign here. So on the left side of this equal sign here, we have like terms. We can combine 3x and -11x together. So we have 3, and when we're combining like terms, we're adding. So 3 plus -11, or 3 minus 11. You get -8x, and then we're going to bring down the 5. We can't put these together because this has an x and this doesn't. They're not like terms. Okay, so step 1, we just did. Now step 2 is you're going to, I call it, cover up the variable term. So what that means is I get a highlighter and I highlight where the variable is. And I want to get this all by itself. I don't want to touch this here. So if I want this all by itself, I have to get rid of a +5. So if I have a +5 and then I add on this side a -5, +5 and a plus a -5 makes 0. So that's why I'm crossing this out, because it makes 0. And then whatever I do on the left side, I'm going to do to the right side. So this is 29 plus I added a -5. That makes 24. Okay, so that was step 2. Then step 3 is we are going to divide by the coefficient. So the coefficient is just a number in front of the variable. So for example, this x has a 5 right next to it. So we're going to divide by the coefficient. So here we have in front of the x is a -8. So this says -8 times x. So to undo it, we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by itself. So the reason why we're dividing -8 by a -8 is because it makes +1. So this becomes +1. And in the previous video, you learned that when you have a 1 in front of an x, it doesn't need to be there, because this is just saying 1 times x, which is just itself. So that's why we cross this out, not because it makes 0, we cross it out because we just have an x, just one x. And then whatever we do to this side, we have to do to the right side. So 24 divided by -8. So 24 divided by -8 is -3. So our goal when we're solving an equation is to get the variable, the x, all by itself. So this is our answer. It is an integer. Now, the reason why I love solving equations, it's one of my favorite topics in algebra, is because when I'm done, I could take the original problem I was given and check it by replacing the x with the number I just got. So I can plug in for x a -3, and then I use my order of operations. So I'm going to multiply here, 3 times -3. So 3 times -3, and then that's -9. And then here I have more multiplication, so -11 times -3, that's +33. And then I'm going to bring down the +5. And then I'm going to combine this all together, -9 plus 33 plus 5. And we get the same thing on both sides. So then I'm happy and I know that this answer is correct. So it is x equals -3. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at example 2. So our first step is to simplify if we can. So again, we learned in lesson 1, simplifying in algebra means, can we distribute or can we combine like terms? So if we look at this problem here, we have parentheses, and in front of the parenthesis there is a number, so we're going to multiply the -4 times 3. We get -12x, and then we have -4 times a -2. And that is a +8. And then I'm going to bring down the 3x plus 3. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2 is we're going to cover up the variable. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and I want to, there isn't a variable. There's variables. There's more than one. So I can't highlight and get the variable by itself. So that is my reminder that I need to remove one of them. It doesn't matter which one. So I'll show you both ways to prove it does not matter. So for example, I could do -3x, because 3x minus 3x, that's 0. So it's gone. And then I have here -12 plus a -3. That makes -15x plus 8 equals 3 here. Now I can do step 2. I can highlight where the variable is and then subtract 8 to both sides because I want to make this 0 here. And then a 3 plus a -8 is -5. And then the very last step is always to divide if there's a coefficient, a number in front of the x. So we're going to divide both sides by a -15. So then we get x equals, we have a -5 divided by a -15. Now, without a calculator, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So there should be no negative in my answer. And then 15 can't go evenly into 5. So I know my answer is going to be a decimal, which means if it's a decimal, it has a fractional answer. So without a calculator, I'm just doing what divides both of these numbers. So 5 goes into both of these numbers. So it'd be 1/3. So my answer is 1/3. Now if I want to check that with a calculator, it gave me the decimal. So if I click second, and then on my calculator here it says FD, that means convert from fraction to decimal. So if I click that button, there's the 1/3. Okay, so again, you're always going to have a fraction answer when the bottom number doesn't go into the top number evenly. And then you just divide out the common factor. Okay, so now for time's sake, I'm not going to plug this in for the x, but just like I showed up here, if you plug in 1/3 for all the x's, you can check if your answer is correct because it will make the same value on the left and the right side.